Welcome, everyone, to the Instrument Closet Podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Phillippee, your local mass communications major, asking the students, staff, and alumni of the East Central University Band Program about their life and time in the world of music. Today, we are starting off with the one and only director of the East Central University Band Program, Dr. NicholausMeyers. Dr. Myers, a native of Georgia, is currently the director of bands and head over percussion, as well as the chair of the Department of Performing Arts at East Central University in Ada, Oklahoma. Dr. Myers directs the Eye of Tigerland Marching Band, Wind Ensemble, Percussion Ensemble, and other courses in the music education sequence. Additionally, during the spring, he organizes the OSSAA 3A and 4A State Band Contest, along with a large annual high school marching band competition called Tigerpalooza during the fall that brings marching bands from across the state of Oklahoma to compete. You can find the rest of Dr. Myers' accolades in the show notes below. Well, hello to the show, Dr. Myers. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty awesome. All right, we got to start with the penultimate question. Why did you pick music as your career?
Okay, that's a question I talk about a lot, and there's several parts to it. And growing up, during my time at elementary school, MTV was really big. So I was always watching that after school. And then we had a phenomenal band director because at the elementary school, band started in 5th grade at that time. And so when I was in like 3rd and 4th grade, I saw this lady and she was just so cool. And, you know, all these people were in band and they were making music and they were having a blast, making the music, hanging out before and after band. And something was it just made me curious about it. From seeing the band at school, you know, MTV was such a big thing back in the 80s, and then just, you know, driving around, and my parents constantly had music on the radio, and all these items just consistently were going through my head, and I was like, I want to do something with music. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew music was a path that I wanted to go. And so when I was young, naturally that idea of being in a rock band came first because of the popularity. But then when I got into middle school, I joined middle school band because the lady who was at my elementary school became the middle school band director. And again, she was just so cool. And we all loved her, and I joined band. Then I ended up in high school, and I said, well, you know what, I want to go to college to be a music major. I still didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher or a performer. I just knew I had to go along that path to get to the next level. And then, you know, after my bachelor's degree, I continued on with education and performing and playing, and it got me to the point where I am today.
All right. You had mentioned in your bio that you also compose music. So what's your process when you're like coming up with an idea to compose, and then your process of composing and getting it together?
All right, yes, composing is a big part of what I do. I started probably when I was in my 2nd year of my undergrad. I started just dabbling around on paper and sitting at the piano like most people do, coming up with some ideas. And then I started taking some more formal lessons to help with that. Of course, you know, as a music major, we take theory, we take counterpoint to help with the framework of how a composition is based, form and analysis, classes like that. And again, I was playing in the orchestra, and I had such a love for film music. And I said, ooh, that sounds like something I would love to do, because, you know, you go and see these big movies and they have these epic soundtracks. So that kind of jumped me into that. And so you had to learn a little bit about orchestration, you know, what each instrument can and can't do or maybe shouldn't do. And then eventually the ability of levels. You have to understand what you're doing for a middle school group or a high school group or a professional group. And over the last 20 plus years, I've composed in different ways. I still like sitting at the piano with a manuscript paper and a pencil and playing on the piano and writing it out with pencil. To me, that's a really it benefits me that way, because I can pen to paper is a lot easier than me composing within Finale, which I still do. Finale is my prominent music notation software. In Finale, I've written pieces exclusively, but I just like being able to go to manuscript very quickly, be able to edit. And there's just something about that classical way of doing it. But everybody is different. You have to find what works for you. I will say I am not a fan of listening to everything through Finale, because that can give you a false sense of what your piece is going to sound like. Because, we grew up with really rinky-dinky sounds in Finale, and now they're a lot better. And you can really produce a recording from Finale, Sibelius, other programs that sound close to what a live orchestra. And then kind of go with what you said, how do I start? Sometimes I have an idea in my head that I can immediately put on paper. Other times I search. It's also based around feelings, have I been happy or sad at that point, or what the person commissioning the work wants it for. They say, like one of my latest, the guy said, he's like, I want you to write a sad percussion ensemble piece. So I had to think about, okay, how does that sound in the percussion ensemble? What can I do to bring that to life, along with the title that I ended up giving the work? So there's several ways to go about it, and it has evolved quite a bit over the last 20 years and will continue to evolve, just based around my thought process or how I feel that day or what's in front of me. Because I can sit outside in my car and write music, or I can sit at the computer and write music. It's just different ways, and I urge students to try different things versus going one direction, which kind of leaves you in a box.
And you have posted your music on Spotify and iTunes, that's correct?
Yes, Spotify and iTunes, and I believe some other platforms out there as well. You can easily Google my name or in a composition. SoundCloud too. Some of those traditional platforms to demonstrate my music.
All right. So the upcoming band concert at East Central University, tell us a little bit about it.
All right, we're taking a different path on this concert. Traditionally, we'll do some lengthy pieces, some large standards, like the last concert during the fall 23 semester. We did 2 works that overall was about 35 minutes in length. So on this first concert, we have 6 selections. And they're shorter pieces, which there's nothing wrong with that. Again, here in college, we're trying to have pieces that are contrasting both in mood and length, duration. So this next concert will also have a piece for solo trumpet and band. We're doing the Prayer of St. Gregory by Alan Hovhannes. He's an Armenian composer, and I wanted a piece for our trumpet teacher to play with the band to show her off. And then we're doing a piece by Odsvin Badsvik. He's a Norwegian composer, specifically a tuba soloist that composes, and he has a piece called Deja Vu. And it's kind of a funky piece that'll contrast the lyrical trumpet feature. This piece, Deja Vu, kind of has a drum set part in there, so it's more of like a funkier piece. Then we're going to have 4 other pieces without soloists. We'll have a piece called Australian Upcountry Tune by Percy Granger, who is a staple in the wind band world. He actually was here on the campus of ECU twice back in the 40s, which is a big deal to have a composer of that level here back in the day. It's just really cool as part of our musical history. We're going to be doing a piece by Rossano Galante called Hypnotic Memories. Rossano Galante is a film composer who also writes for orchestra, high school level and collegiate orchestra and band. And so when you listen to his music, you can really have that idea of a film score. We'll be opening the concert with a piece called Rampage by Todd Stalter. It's just a nice laid-back piece. Well, I say laid-back, but it's like it says Rampage. Right away, it has this driving idea that's coming from the low instruments with lots of percussion. Good way to start a concert. And then we're going to end the concert with a piece called Ride by Brian Balmages. This piece is a good way to close the program. It's nice and has a nice big sound, very bombastic at times. one might think that you're on the marching field. Again, try to bring that contrast to the stage as much as possible through these 6 pieces. And I believe the audience will enjoy the selections, and the students have enjoyed putting them together.
All right. This concert is March the 3rd at 2 o'clock, I believe.
Is it March the 3rd, or it's March the 3rd at 2:30?
2:30.
Sunday at 2:30. We always have concerts at 2:30 on Sunday.
All right. So usually when you pick pieces for the concerts, there tends to be like a couple of composers that always come up, like Ed Huckabee, Percy Granger, Tom Stalter, all those. Why do you keep bringing those particular composers back?
Well, keep in mind, I don't return to them too often. It's not like I'm doing the same composer on each piece, but excuse me. What I've done here at ECU, especially at the wind ensemble, a lot of the students in the band are music ed students. And so the music that we play is graded. A grade 1 is for a young band. A grade 6 is for a professional level band, or a group that can tackle that level of music. So one of the things I like to do is to play music from composers that also write primarily for middle school, high school level, which is where those students in my band are going to play. If I keep playing high level music like grade 5 or 6 all the time, they're going to have a hard time relating to their classroom. So if you're in the wind ensemble here for 4 years, 8 semesters, you're also going to play some grade 3 music by composers by like Todd Stalter, Ed Huckabee, and several other composers. So you can have that idea in your mind of, hey, here's some composers. We played some lower level pieces that I might be able to play in my band and I have experience with. And sometimes it's just fun returning to those composers, because I know that we easily can put them together in a short amount of time if we need. Always have those pieces on programmed or on the back burner or on the shelf in case we miss a week of classes due to the snow. We can easily continue on and adjust very, very quickly. But if you've been in the band with me, we were talking about this the other day, that if we have 3 concerts a year and we're performing 5 to 6 pieces on a concert, let's say you do 15 a year, 30, you could do 60 pieces with me over the course, or more over the course of your 4 years here, and 60 of those pieces would be from 50 different composers.
Wow. So on the topic of composers, is there like a particular composer that you like to pick their pieces?
That has changed over time. Things come and go, and they should come and go. And depending on where you grow up in America, you're going to have a lot of specific composers, meaning I remember I grew up in Georgia, so we played a lot of David Holsinger's music and Alfred Reed because he was down in Florida. And then, here in Oklahoma, we have composers like Ed Huckabee, Roland Barrett, and some David Gorham, other composers who are from the area. So you see a lot of the regional stuff coming up that's very attractive to the band directors in the area. So over time, I've gone through different periods where it's for this 3 or 5 year period, I go, I'm really into this composer, but I got to be careful because what can happen is you can get stuck on one composer and you keep playing his or her music over and over again, and you're leaving out a lot of other people who are phenomenal composers. So you have to remember that. Yes, I could do a piece by certain composers on every concert, but I have to hold back because it's not about me always. And we want to get that variety out to the students. So again, we can sit here all day and talk about wind band composers and how they come, especially we have a lot of new and younger composers coming out, and so Sometimes I want to see what their music is doing, but I never forget our standards. Just because a piece was written 50 years ago doesn't mean we need to say, oh, it's old. Nope. It's still as important as anything else. Just like people go to concerts to see Beethoven all the time, and that man lived over 200 years ago. All right. So over time, the composers I have chosen has fluctuated, and it also is based around the ability of the ensemble. Right? Some composers are really well known for writing certain graded lit, and some are really good at 2/3. Some are 3/4, 4/5, 5/6. So that also plays into consideration as well.
All right. Going on to the topic of handling band ensembles, how do you handle when a band starts to fall apart during a concert? Because that has got to be difficult.
During a concert, I've been fortunate. I have never had a band that has stopped, or what we call, like fall on their face. I've never had to restart a piece. And I've had friends, and I've seen stuff in contests and concerts where the weirdest thing just happened. Sometimes the biggest thing for me over my life conducting is a student got behind on the beat and had to alter it really quickly to get back on, or a percussionist dropped something in the back, or somebody goes, oh, I don't have page 2 of the 3 pages I need, and they're scurrying around. But I've been very fortunate that I've never had a concert or a selection fall apart or split to the point where it was just a gap. So, but conductors who have had that happen, it's usually been just an accident of sorts within the ensemble, and they got back. But I've seen, like I said, I've seen some high schools where they were really off immediately, then they would just stop and restart it. And things happen sometimes. I mean, we're all human. The biggest thing is for everybody in the group to try to figure out what's going on and get back on. And a lot of times things will work themselves out, and your audience a lot of times won't even know that you had a hiccup unless you show it and all that. Or they just really, really know the piece. And I don't know too many people go to concerts to go, oh, I'm waiting for them to mess up. They're more like cheering you on and be like, all right, this sounds really great. And if something happens, they're like, oh, I hope that resolves itself, or it gets better, so they can enjoy the piece. So, but I've heard horror stories and stuff, but I've been very fortunate. And of course, if you know your part well enough, that really helps both on the band side and the conductor side if something were to happen.
All right. So on that, about how important would you say, like, sight reading a brand new ensemble piece as an ensemble, not by yourself, but as an ensemble? Like, how important is that to you?
Sight reading is very important. Like you said, like sight reading as an ensemble is an art. Sight reading as an individual is an art as well. Being able to put that music out for the first time and read through it, sight read it, is a great experience. And you only get really like one shot to sight read the piece. And, that's where all those fundamentals, your experience comes into play, because I'm putting that new music out there and you're seeing the same notes you've seen before. And you'll see the majority of the rhythms. Now, if it's a newer contemporary piece, you might see some funky rhythms or some sort of aleatoric notation that you really aren't familiar with. And those can trip you up, but part of it is like you just got to go for it. That's part of what makes sight reading special. It's like turn it into a game, and a game that you're going to score high at, versus like, oh, this is new, I don't know if I can do that. Oh, you're just going to set yourself up for failure. If we're all together, we're following the conductor, and we know how to count, let's turn it into a challenge of what can we do from our initial first viewing of this piece. And it's really important. And you can tell bands that who sight reads as an ensemble. Here at the school, we play so much literature that we're constantly having that new idea. Because, we can play a game here at ECU where like we can pass out a piece and we're going to go, all right, we got 30, 35 minutes to work on this. Let's see how far we can go in that period of time. And once you sight read it and then you leave the 30 minutes later, we're able to dive into it rather quickly and leave feeling like we're in a good place to come back the next day. And who doesn't like looking at something for the first time and going, wow, we really played that. I got those notes. I got those rhythms. It makes you feel really good. And if you ever want to be a professional, you have to sight read. There is no taking your time to learn the part. You've got to be able to jump in and really, really do it justice right away, because there's sometimes as a professional, we show up and we sight read something, rehearse it a little bit, have a break, and then there's a concert. There's no going home. You've got to have those chops and that ability right up front.
Yeah. So East Central University has done a couple of first debut pieces. So when you get a piece, because I'm assuming that there's pretty much no pre-recording except for maybe a MIDI version of it, how do you go about dissecting the score, figuring out which parts you really need to bring out when your ensemble is first reading it? Talk about that process.
Okay. So here at ECU, we're very fortunate in the spring. Almost every semester, we premiered a new work, if not 2 new works on a concert. So maybe 6 to 8 new works the students have been part of here. And that in itself is a really neat experience, being able to bring something to life that nobody has ever heard. And the majority of the time, I'll get the score. And of course, like you said, I'll get a workup or a MIDI recording of the piece to kind of help guide me through it. But also, a conductor also has to look at the music itself. And this comes from oral skills. I can look at the page and I know what the melody sounds like without having to go to the piano. What might be tough is how the chords respond. And that can be me sitting at the piano, playing them out, or listen to a MIDI recording. And so I get right to work, from step one, from what is the key? What is the time signature? What rhythms are we working with here? Tempo, dynamics. All right, what solos are requested from this piece? All right, do I have the players on each of the solo parts? Percussion, how many players do I need? What instruments we need? Is there a piano? We had a piece that we premiered where it had a piano, but piano 4-hand part. So I had to have 2 players for that. Does this piece have harp? If I don't have a harp, what can I do? Can I get a synthesizer to play it? It just depends on the piece. The part of a new piece at times is just the logistical side of putting it together. The percussion might need 30 minutes to set up a large percussion section, or they might only have 2 or 3 instruments they need. And then I go to work in my office, sitting there, either listen to the MIDI or just a metronome going, and I'm conducting through it. I'm singing the parts. Now then I go to town marking up my score, any tempo changes, any tonal center change, or AKA change of key, time signature changes. So I'm marking the score for me, so it'll help me in preparing the score, because that's going to help the ensemble. If I don't know the score of the music, I can't answer the questions. I can't conduct the piece accurately enough, because there isn't anything for us to go off. There is no live recording, so we are it. And that's one of the things that's beautiful about it, because we're presenting this and I'm looking at the score and I'm trying to portray what the composer wants as much as possible. And I'll talk to them through email or the phone. Some of them really like to be invested in it, and some go, hey, I want to see what you do with the piece. And then the students, that can be tricky for them, because they're like, there is no recording. I'm not sure how this goes. And it's well, that's part of the learning process. Something new, something original that we get to present for the first time to an audience. And that's really neat for the students here to be able to do.
Yeah. And our final question for today, what has your teaching experience been like here at East Central University?
This is my 6th year here at ECU, and my experience has been really, really good. Yes, we had the couple of semesters where we were affected by COVID, and that changed everything quite a bit very quickly. And unfortunately, a lot of people left college around the United States and even world. But I really enjoy working here. I love working with the students, the faculty, the alumni, the staff. We have great support from the school. We have this phenomenal building that we get to work in. We have a phenomenal hall to perform in. It's really a unique situation here in Ada. And, when you live and work in this building, in this area, you can forget that you have a lot of good things going on. Like for me personally, when I visit other schools and work with other bands at the college level, I go, wow, we have a good thing going on. We have a great building, because a lot of other schools have a band room that looks like a basement and smells moldy. And, they're not fortunate to have as many students or the funding or the support like we have here. And you can forget that very quickly. So no, I really like it being here in Oklahoma. My wife teaches music here and teaches piano lessons as well, and we just enjoy it here. And I'm looking forward to what the next few years brings as we get out of this. People say COVID slump or whatever. Now it rebound. I don't want to call it that. We're just kind of getting back to what the arts are supposed to be like here, and hopefully it'll keep growing in Oklahoma, because what's life without music?
Absolutely true. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Myers.
Thank you for having me today.
Of course. Tune in next time for another interview of The Instrument Closet, where we will be featuring Dana Dawson, the principal flute of the East Central University Wind Ensemble.